And now that we are done talking about the Flyweight Championship main event at UFC 301, we will get into the rest of the card. And it starts in the co-main event, the Bantamweight division. We move up 10 pounds from the main event. Top 15 ranked Bantamweight, Jonathan Martinez, welcomes back Jose Aldo after a couple-year hiatus in retirement. The King of Rio, the legend, the UFC Hall of Famer, UFC featherweight champion, multi-time title defender, Jose Aldo is back to perform in front of his home country in Brazil, and he is taking on the 12th ranked bantamweight, Jonathan Martinez. You talk about a fight that came out of left field, it is this one right here, but my goodness, this is going to be a treat. We last saw Jose Aldo fight in August of 2022 in the UFC when he lost a decision to Merab Dvalishvili. But let us not forget, prior to that loss, he had won 3 straight fights in the bantamweight division over Marlon Chito Vera, who just fought for the bantamweight championship of the world, Pedro Munoz, and Rob Font. However, in that time off that Jose Aldo retired from the UFC, Jonathan Martinez has racked up the biggest wins of his career with a finish of Cub Swanson, a decision win over Said Nurmagomedov, and a finish over Adrian Yanez. And prior to that stretch, he has 3 other wins to his name. The win streak is 6 total, but those 3 big victories coming in the time that Jose Aldo has been away from the sport leads me to believe that Jonathan Martinez is ready to prove he belongs and that he should not be just a forgotten name in the back half of the bantamweight division, one of the most stacked, if not the most stacked division in all of mixed martial arts right now. We have 2 of the most brutal leg kickers in UFC history going at it. Those 2 TKOs that I mentioned in this 3-fight stretch for Jonathan Martinez were both due to leg kick finishes, and Jose Aldo is no stranger to throwing nasty leg kicks in his own right. I look for this to be a back and forth scrap for 15 minutes or less between Jonathan Martinez and Jose Aldo, where they will go toe to toe, tit for tat, striking with each other on the feet. And I think that means, as fight fans, we are in for a treat. I think this is going to be a very fun fight. If Jose Aldo wins, he proves that at what now, 37 years old, he can still hang with the big boys. And Jonathan Martinez, just now entering his prime, 7 years younger at 30 years old, 19-4 overall in his career, who will look to extend his win streak to 7, hold his spot in the top 15, get a victory over a legend and former champion in Jose Aldo. Jonathan Martinez looks to prove he belongs with the elite of the elite in the bantamweight division. This is a showcase of talent at 135 pounds. Next, we move to the light heavyweight division, where former title challenger and top 15 ranked Anthony Lionheart Smith will look to hold his spot, much like his former opponent Ryan Spann tried to do last weekend against Bogdan Guskov. That did not go to plan for Spann, as Guskov finished him and became a top 15 ranked fighter in his own right. Smith will look to right the ship, end his losing streak, and do what Ryan Spann could not do against a up-and-coming prospect by beating Vitor Petrino, undefeated Brazilian, 11-0. The 35-year-old, 56 professional fight veteran Anthony Smith has lost 3 of his last 4 fights, 2 of those by TKO stoppage, most recently against Khalil Roundtree in December. Whereas Vitor Petrino, prior to last week, actually had reached top 15, but then when Guskov beat Spann, it sent Spann back to number 15. It put Guskov in the number 12 spot, and Petrino is probably number 16 now. So he will look to re-enter the top 15 at light heavyweight and get the biggest win of his career. He won on the Contender Series in September of 2022 and is 4-0 in the UFC thus far. The biggest win over Tyson Pedro that happened just a month and a half ago, or I guess it's almost 2 months now, against Tyson Pedro on March 2nd of 2024. He's finished 8 of his 11 victories. And Anthony Smith, I mean, this guy, what did I say? 56 total professional fights. He's seen the scorecards 7 times total. That is it. Violence is guaranteed, and the betting line on this is massive on the side of Vitor Petrino. So the odds makers are thinking he will remain perfect, improve to 12-0, and at only 26, get the biggest win of his career and enter close to the top 10 in the light heavyweight division. We go down one weight class to middleweight, where Michel Pereira will be taking on Ihor Potieria. That is a short notice replacement. I cannot recall who Michel's original opponent was. If you know, please be sure to let me know in the comments. But let me get this off my chest here. Michel Pereira has won 7 fights in a row and is somehow still not ranked in the top 15 of middleweight. This division is not the deepest weight class in the UFC. How is he not a top 15 ranked fighter? This is am I missing something? I'm looking at the rankings right here. Michel Pereira, yeah. He's not ranked, yet he's won 7 straight fights. He just submitted Michal Oleksichuk last month. Before that, he knocked out Andre Petroski. Look at all the wins. Andre Fialho, Santiago Ponzinibbio, Nico Price, Chaos Williams. What? How is this man not ranked? He has proved that he has updated his skill set. He has massively upgraded his fight IQ. He is no longer doing cartwheels and somersaults in the cage. Instead, he is just putting on clinics and easily beating many of these opponents during this 7-fight win streak. And really, it should be 8 because he lost to Diego Sanchez, but that was because of a disqualification. If you want to take that away, he has not lost a fight since September of 2019. Michel Pereira is 30 years old, entering his prime, somehow still has 43 professional fights. This man is a madman. And Ihor Potieria is 2-3 so far in his 5-fight UFC career. He did earn a contract on the 2021 season of Dana White Contender Series, and he's coming off of a victory. He beat Robert Brischek in February on the the Hermanson versus Pfeiffer fight night card. But before that, had lost 2 in a row to Rodolfo Balado and Carlos Alberg, both of those via knockout. Michel Pereira, rightfully so, being that this is a short notice opponent and someone who hasn't had as much success in the UFC, is a massive, massive favorite. Pereira just ran through Oleksichuk less than 2 months ago at UFC 299. I think he's coming for blood and another big finish in his home country of Brazil to make it 8 straight wins and finally earn a top 15 spot that, to be honest, he's already earned through and through. We stay in the middleweight division as the pay-per-view main card gets opened up by 2 top 15 185-pounders. Former top-ranked light heavyweight Paul Craig will be taking on Caio Borralho.
Scottish kilt. What is under? Yes, please.
You want to see? It's my
Your kibbles and bits?
it's my cock.
The Bear Jew Paul Craig is pretty much must-watch TV anytime he has a fight scheduled. I mean, he's got 25 pro fights and only gone the distance 2 times. He's 1-1 in the middleweight division. He debuted last July and finished Andre Muniz. Then he fought Brendan Allen in November in a main event and got submitted in the 3rd round. He's lost 3 of his last 4 fights, but of course those other 2 losses were still in the 205-pound light heavyweight weight class. Viewing Paul Craig physically, he fills out pretty well for middleweight, but he is 36 years old, whereas counterpart this weekend is 31. Caio Borralho is 15-1, a Dana White Contender Series elite fighter that has done nothing but looked fantastic, quite frankly, since earning that contract. Was that in? Oh, yeah, that was the 2021 season because he won 2 fights in the same season before they gave him the contract. And since then, he is 5-0 in the UFC. So Caio is an elite level grappler. Paul Craig is an elite level grappler. What's got to give? Sometimes when we see 2 great jiu-jitsu practitioners and grapplers, they cancel each other out and they strike with each other on the feet. But if I had to guess, and especially after Paul Craig is coming off of a submission loss to Brendan Allen, Caio Borralho is going to hold the upper hand here. And because of that, another massive favorite on this UFC 301 card on the side of the Brazilian talent, Caio Borralho. And let me just finish this discussion by talking about a fight that is absolutely getting forgotten about and slept on in the featherweight division. Jack Shore, the pride of Wales, 17-1, is taking on Joanderson Brito, who is 16-3. This fight's gonna be a banger. Jack Shore debuted after being a Cage Warrior superstar and entered the UFC in 2019. He has amassed a record of 6 wins to 1 loss. The only loss back in the bantamweight division against Ricky Simone, where he got submitted in July of 2022. He entered the featherweight division last spring. I feel like, it's been over a year since we've seen Jack Shore in March and submitted Makwan Ermikani. And Joanderson Brito, can we remember that he beat Diego Lopez on Dana White's Contender Series in 2021? Yes, it was a technical decision, but you talk about a win, that is aged like a fine wine. It is that one right there. Brito faltered in his UFC debut by losing a decision to Bill Algeo, but since then has won 4 straight fights, 4 straight finishes. The biggest win against Jonathan Pierce last November. Pierce coming off of a fight of the night that didn't get fight of the night versus David Onama last weekend. This is a banger. 29-year-old Brito, 14 finishes. Jack Shore, 29 years old, 13 finishes. This is going to be an amazing fight. I don't feel like people are talking about this fight. Why are we not talking about this fight? This is the fight of the night for the prelims, the people's main event for the prelims. Ha! It may even be the people's main event of the entire UFC 301 card. And you know what? I want to talk about one more fight real quick before we head on out of here. The rest of the card is good too. There are just a lot of Brazilian young up-and-coming talents on this card, including Ismael Bonfim in the first or second fight of the night. But this fight right here, the number 13 ranked strawweight, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, former title challenger. Let us not forget how great her title fight was with Joanna Jędrzejczyk back at UFC 205 in November of 2016. She's on a 4-fight win streak at 38 years old, and she's looking to hold her spot against a very dangerous Iasmin Lucindo. Lucindo has only lost 1 fight since 2019, and that was her UFC debut in a fight of the night against Iasmin Uruguay. Since then, she's rallied off victories over Brogan Walker, Ultimate Fighter alum, and a submission over Poliana Viana. But Karolina Kowalkiewicz, 4 straight wins. Felice Herrig, Silvana Gomez Juarez, Vanessa Demopoulos, and Diana Belbita last October. She's proved that she can still get the job done at 38 years old. And this is someone that between September of 2018 and August of 2021 lost 5 straight fights. And on the brink of getting cut, maybe even retiring, she has rallied off 4 straight wins since June of 2022. I think that's an amazing story. One of the quiet sweethearts of the sport, if you will, always does the wink and the smirk when they are announcing her. Former title challenger, 16 wins, 7 losses. I think this is actually a pretty good challenge for Lucindo to prove that she does belong in the rankings because, again, only 2-1 in the UFC, only 22 years old, but my goodness, a 16-year age gap may just be the difference come Saturday night. So let me know what your favorite fights are for UFC 301 in the comments below and give me your predictions. If there's a fight that I didn't mention on here more in depth, give me your thoughts on that fight in the comments as well. If you are new, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. Drop a like on this preview if you enjoyed it. Every single week I come and talk about the X's and O's, yeah, sure, but I also pride myself in this show and community on the best storylines of every single fight. What is at stake? How did we get here? What will it mean for the fighters' futures? That is what I'm focused on with this show. So if you enjoy that, please be sure to support any way that you wish. You can join the community on social media at the BAJ MMA, and you can follow along on your favorite audio listening platform. If you like one long form podcast episode, they release every Friday and Monday on platforms such as Spotify, Apple, and many, many more. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and I will see you in the next video.